You'd think after building your own goddamn house, paying the taxes, and resting your tired feet on your own porch, you'd be safe from the noise of the world. But no, not on my watch. I was sitting there that morning, minding my own business, sipping a cold homebrew like any retired foreman with a titanium hip and half a working spine would do, when suddenly, two county deputies came marching up my driveway like they'd just spotted a meth lab. Flashlights up, hands on their belts, faces pulled tight, like they were acting out a scene from a bad cop show. One of them, a young kid with a nervous tremor, yelled, "Sir, step away from the property. You're trespassing on Cypress Heights Estates land." I blinked twice, looked down at my boots, which were currently resting on the porch I built myself. Then I looked back up at them and said, "Well, hell, boys, if this ain't my property, then who the hell's been paying the mortgage, huh?" Before they could figure out how stupid they sounded, Brenda Albright, the HOA president, came power walking out from behind them like a vulture wearing Lululemon. Her fingers stabbed the air, pointing right at my chest. "Arrest him. He doesn't own this land anymore." I didn't know whether to laugh, choke, or ask if she'd accidentally snorted cinnamon. But something cold and quiet settled right in the center of my chest, a realization that cut through the beer buzz. They weren't enforcing rules. They weren't protecting property. They were trying to take mine, 1 inch of dirt at a time. So, I stood up slow, wiped the dust off my jeans, and stared right at the badge of the cop closest to me. No yelling, no drama, just one sentence. "You boys are about to learn. You picked the wrong damn porch to stand on." That moment right there, that's where this whole ridiculous fight really started. And if you've got a minute, I'll tell you exactly how a simple porch, a quiet lake trail, and one red metal sign turned my retirement into the most absurd legal battle I've had since my divorce. After the deputies backed off that morning, looking more confused than victorious, I sat back down on my porch swing and just stared at the land stretching in front of me. A little breeze rolled through, carrying the smell of pine and lake water the way it always did. That breeze was the whole reason I bought this place in the first damn place. See, after 54 years on this planet, I was tired. Not the need to nap kind of tired, the seen too much, done too much, lost too much kind. My marriage had collapsed 3 years earlier, clean on paper, ugly in real life. The kind of divorce where you walk out with half your savings and a whole lot of silence inside your chest. My 2 boys were grown, living their own busy lives, which is exactly what I raised them to do. But that leaves a man with a lot of empty evenings. And after nearly 3 decades running construction crews, real construction, not the shiny clipboard kind, you don't retire with much except scars, a bad knee, and a set of calluses that stay with you even when every contract doesn't. So, when I first found this land, 4 acres tucked behind a line of old oaks, the kind that creak in the wind but still stand proud, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Not the quiet of loneliness, the quiet of purpose. I built my house myself. The porch was my favorite part, wide and sturdy, with enough space for a hammock. I stained the wood 3 times that first month, not because I needed to, but because I wanted everything here to be mine, my hands in every nail, my sweat in every plank. But peace is a funny thing. It erodes slowly, quietly, like water eating away at a stone. And the first crack in my peace, a trail. Just a simple little dirt trail that cut across the back of my land and headed straight down toward Lake Hemlock. I didn't think much of it. People walked it, kids biked it. I figured, what the hell? Summer's short. Let them have the shortcut. I didn't mind. Not at first. But as I sat on that porch swing after the police visit, I realized something I should have seen way earlier. The moment you let people treat your land like theirs, it's only a matter of time before somebody decides you don't belong on it anymore. That trail had always been busy, but summer made it louder. And with it came something I didn't bargain for: trash. First a soda can, then 2, then a whole handful of wrappers tossed like confetti across the brush line. I tried to excuse it until I found a used diaper, half buried, under one of my old maples. I've stepped in things most folks couldn't pronounce, but nothing prepares you for the sheer insult of finding a stranger's baby diaper on your own soil. A couple afternoons later, I heard sharp laughter coming from the trail. I walked up slow, hands in my pockets, voice steady. "All right, boys, pick all that up. You're on private property." The tallest kid, shaggy blonde hair, expensive sneakers, grinned like he owned the whole damn country. Relax, old man. Everybody uses this trail. Trail's on my land, I said, and you're littering on it. Whatever. It's just trash. That's when I stepped a little closer. And trash gets reported as vandalism when it's on private property. You want me to file the report with the sheriff now? Or do you want to pick it up first? They froze. Not scared. Kids like that don't get scared right away. They get offended. The blonde one narrowed his eyes. My mom runs the HOA, he said, dragging out each word like a badge. So, we're allowed to be here. I let out a short breath. Not a laugh, not a sigh, just the sound a man makes when he realizes exactly what kind of trouble he's dealing with. No, son. You're allowed to be here only if I say you are. As they grumbled and picked up the cans, the blonde kid tossed one last line over his shoulder. We'll see about this. Those 4 little words felt like a storm cloud rolling in. By sunset, someone was pounding on my door, hard, sharp, angry. I opened it and found her, Brenda Albright. Same tight ponytail as her blonde boy, same sneer, same I own the world look in her eyes. And the first thing out of her mouth wasn't a question, it was an accusation. Did you threaten my sons? I stood there in the doorway, still holding my homebrew, and looked straight at the woman who was standing with one foot on my welcome mat like she was claiming the land for the whole goddamn state of Texas. Ma'am, I said calmly, your boys were throwing trash all over my woods. They told me you threatened to file charges, she snapped. I told them I could. I corrected her. Trespassing and littering on private land. That's the law. She scoffed, an exaggerated, dramatic sound. Private land? This trail has been used by this community for 20 years. It's practically public access. Practically, I said, crossing my arms, isn't legally. That line didn't just hit her. It offended her. Her eyes went sharp like she just found the one loose thread on a sweater she planned to yank until the whole thing unraveled. You think you can just move in here, she hissed, throw around rules, and bully teenagers? Lady, I said, with a short, tired laugh. If reminding kids not to trash the woods qualifies as bullying, you've got bigger problems at home than me. She pointed dramatically toward the trail. This trail belongs to Cypress Heights Estates, and you will not block access. It's on my land, I repeated, slower this time. That means I decide what happens on it. She turned, tossed one last line over her shoulder. Enjoy your peace while you have it. The next morning, I walked out onto the porch with a hot cup of coffee. Right under the polite homemade private property, please don't litter sign I'd put up, sat a half-crushed beer can, placed almost perfectly centered beneath the sign. Not tossed, not dropped, placed like a dare. I stared at it. Maybe coincidence. Except the next morning, there were 3 cans lined up neatly. And on the third morning, wrappers, plastic cups, cigarette butts, all of it scattered within a 3-foot circle around my sign. Not on the trail, not down the path. Just there, right in front of the only thing I had put up to set a boundary. I bent down, picking up one piece at a time, the way a man does when he's not angry yet, but knows he's going to be. As I cleaned, I noticed footprints, teenage-sized, and one footprint bigger, wider, adult-sized. I didn't want to assume, but I could picture Brenda standing behind the trees, her arms crossed, watching. I stood there, trash bag in hand, and felt something shift in my chest. This wasn't about the trail anymore. This was a warning shot, a test of control. And if courtesy didn't work, authority would. If please don't got ignored, and no trespassing, violators will be prosecuted, would do the talking instead. I went into the shed, grabbed a fresh metal sign, thicker this time, and a bag of concrete mix. I hammered the metal post into the dirt with a heavy driver, each hit echoing through the trees like a slow drum beat. Then I mixed the concrete in a bucket and poured it around the base, packing it tight. It was the kind of job I'd done 1,000 times in construction, but this time it felt personal. On my way back up, I ran into my neighbor, old Jim Walker. He leaned over his fence, chewing sunflower seeds. Heard you were doing some hammering back there. That's so, just putting up a sign, I answered. Had enough of people treating my place like a dump. Son, Jim spat a seed shell into the dirt. You know who you're pissing off, right? That woman. She don't like being told no, and she sure as hell don't like losing control. Her control stops at her boundary line, I said. Jim snorted. You think she cares where her boundary line is? He pushed off the fence. Just be ready. People like her don't back down, they double down. I didn't know it yet, but that sign, the one I'd poured concrete around, wouldn't last 48 hours. And the people who came for it, they were coming with a crowbar and the smug confidence of people who believe that rules didn't apply to them. The morning after, I opened my mailbox. Inside was an envelope so aggressively official-looking it practically hissed at me. Thick white paper, HOA letterhead, sealed in navy blue ink. It was 3 pages long, printed front and back, in that cold corporate tone HOA boards specialize in. Mr. Hunt, it has come to our attention that you have unlawfully blocked a community access path. Effective immediately, you are ordered to remove the unauthorized signage. Failure to comply within 48 hours will result in a formal citation. It got better. Furthermore, you are reminded that harassment of minors is a serious offense. And the line that made my eye twitch. Our records indicate a historical easement exists in the area in question. As such, your attempt to impede access is unlawful. Historical easement. I had to sit down. I started laughing. Not a belly laugh, the kind of tired, disappointed laugh a man makes when he realizes he's reading something so far from reality, it circles back around into comedy. If I had a nickel for every time a loud HOA claimed something was historically theirs, I could have bought the entire subdivision. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We saw the sign you put up. That's not allowed. Remove it before this gets worse. No name, just entitlement wrapped in a threat. I looked out the window. This was a battle over control. Their control over land that wasn't theirs. Over a man they thought they could push around. And with every threat, every letter, every fake violation, I felt a deep, slow resolve settle inside me. 2 days after the HOA letter, I was on my porch when I heard tires rolling slow over gravel. Same county cruiser. Same 2 officers. I felt the familiar drop in my stomach, but this time, it was laced with anticipation. The older cop, Sergeant Dugan, that gray mustache and permanent frown, walked up the porch. Mr. Hunt, you put up a sign without authorization. The trail behind your house has been used for over 2 decades. You can't just shut it down because you feel like it. Community access doesn't override private property, I said slowly. Not unless there's a recorded easement, which there isn't. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Hear me real clear, Hunt. If we get one more call saying you've been harassing residents, we can and will detain you for a 24-hour disorderly conduct hold. No charges needed, no questions asked. That's when the political hit me. I looked him dead in the eyes. Let me ask you something, officer. Are you in your right mind? You're giving me an unlawful order on my own land. The younger cop stiffened. Dugan smiled, slow and ugly. Careful. Words like that can be interpreted as obstruction. You boys got badge numbers? I asked. Because you're giving me an unlawful order, and I'd like to report you properly. For half a second, the younger cop, Officer Myers, looked like he wanted to melt into the pavement. Dugan took a step back. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just stared at them with the tired, steady patience of a man who'd been pushed 1 inch too far. Now, unless you boys brought a warrant or a court order, I finished, you're trespassing more than anyone you're here to complain about. They drove off. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This was quiet, dirty pressure. And I just called it out loud. A long time ago, I would have swung first. But age teaches you timing. And right then, standing on my own porch, I knew exactly what I needed: evidence. I called my lawyer, Tom Peterson, the one man who hated HOA bullies the way cats hate vacuum cleaners. All right, Ron, he said, after hearing the whole story. First thing tomorrow morning, get cameras. Good ones. You want eyes on every inch of that land. HOA people like Brenda don't stop unless a judge tells them to, and they are counting on you not having proof when they do something stupid. The next morning, I drove into town and bought 4 top-of-the-line outdoor cameras. Motion detection, night vision sharp enough to read a license plate at 2 a.m. cost me more than a few cases of beer, but peace of mind never goes on sale. I spent the entire afternoon installing them, screws in, cables tucked, Wi-Fi synced. By sundown, my land lit up on my screen like a nighttime map. All right, HOA, I whispered to the screen. Make your move. They didn't disappoint. It took less than 24 hours. Just after 9 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not a text, a motion alert, back trail camera. I tapped the screen, and the moment the video opened, the blood in my veins went cold. 2 men, khaki pants, matching polo shirts with a little HOA logo stitched on the chest, walked straight down my trail. One carried a walkie-talkie. The other carried a crowbar. They marched right up to my new sign, the one I'd poured concrete around. The guy with the crowbar looked around, smirked, and jammed the metal tip under the signpost. My cameras didn't just have high resolution. They had audio. "Crowbar guy," Brenda said, "just break the damn thing." She's sick of looking at it. "Lookout guy. Man, he probably thinks that concrete's going to stop us." With one last heave, the post snapped loose. They dragged the sign out of the hole and let it fall to the dirt. The first guy spat on it. The audio caught the arrogance, the stupidity, and the part that hit me hardest. They truly believed they were untouchable. My first instinct: grab the truck keys and explain the meaning of private property. But I heard Tom's voice in my head. "Don't interfere. Let the camera do the work." I saved the footage, backed it up twice, uploaded it to the cloud, and emailed a copy to Tom with 2 words: "It happened." He called me 30 seconds later. "Ron, this is perfect." They tore down the sign. "Better than that," he replied. "They narrated the crime for us. Tom told me exactly what to do next. File a complaint today. Property destruction, trespass, intimidation, and attach every second of that video." I drove to the county courthouse and handed everything over. The clerk skimmed the form, then looked up at me with wide eyes. "They did this while knowing they were being recorded?" "They're HOA," I said. "They think cameras are for other people." The very next day, just after lunch, the county cruiser was back. And this time, Brenda was with them, a half-pace ahead of the 2 cops, clipboard in hand. I pulled out my phone, tapped the camera app, and started recording. "This man is unlawfully blocking community access and intimidating residents," Brenda said briskly to the officers. "Funny," I said. "All I remember from yesterday is being threatened with a 24-hour hold for standing on my own porch." I lifted my phone slightly. "Before we continue, I need both your names and badge numbers. I'm documenting." Dugan and Myers had to give me their information, on camera. Then Brenda made her final mistake. "Take the sign down, and this whole thing ends." "You mean the sign your HOA security tore out with a crowbar yesterday?" I asked. Brenda's confidence cracked. "That's taken out of context." "That's the nice thing about video, ma'am," I said. "There isn't much context to twist when someone's on camera with a crowbar saying your name like you're signing their paycheck." Sergeant Dugan tried to regain control. "We're here with a simple directive. Stop blocking access to the trail." "So, let me make sure I've got this on record," I said, looking at the phone. "You're ordering me verbally to surrender control of land I legally own without a court order, all because an HOA president told you it's community access. Is that accurate, Sergeant?" He couldn't answer. Brenda hissed. "You're just some bitter old man who bought land next to the wrong neighborhood." I turned to the camera, never taking my eyes off her. "Note for the record," I said calmly. "The HOA president is openly attempting to direct law enforcement actions on private property without legal authority." They left without another word. Their dust was still floating in the sunlight when my phone buzzed. It was an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line stopped my thumb cold. "You're not crazy." She forged everything. The email was from a whistleblower inside the HOA's compliance team. They confessed that Brenda had been forging documents for years. She had forged the historical easement she'd been waving around, forged the old owner's signature, and even forged the date stamp on the trail map to make it look historic. Attached were 5 files, 3 drafts of the same forged signature, an email thread detailing her plot to push him off the trail, and a final audio snippet, just 6 seconds long, of Brenda's voice. "I don't care what the law says. That land is ours now. We'll make him comply." I forwarded everything to Tom. 5 minutes later, he called. "Ron, we're done." "Done." She forged an easement, falsified property records, directed law enforcement interference, and ordered property destruction. "And thanks to your cameras, we can tie every action back to her personally. I file an injunction. I file a criminal referral. This is over." I stepped onto my porch. The air felt different, lighter, like the land itself could finally breathe. I'd been pushed, poked, lied to, and treated like an old fool. But today, the ground beneath my boots felt solid again. The legal part was still ahead, but the truth had finally joined my side. I walked down to the trail, picked up a chunk of the broken concrete, and whispered, "It's my land, and it always was." Tomorrow, Brenda would wake up thinking she still held power. But I'd already taken it from her with a camera, a whistleblower, and the truth she couldn't outrun. And that was the real ending. So, I want to hear from you. If you've ever dealt with a Brenda Albright or a power-tripping Karen who thought she could use fake authority to run your life, tell me your story in the comments below. Do you think I should have fought fire with fire, or was using cameras and lawyers the only way to expose a deep-seated lie? Hit that subscribe button and let me know your thoughts on justice, lies, and what the law really means.